Welcome to Essential Libertarianism, selected readings from voluntarist.com. Essential Libertarianism is voluntarism. Let's reclaim the anti-political heritage of this philosophy together. The essays and books we read in this show will bring us closer to the state-free voluntary society that we desire. Let's begin the journey.
A Moral Challenge by Carl Watner. I've recently been having correspondence with my son about the morality of government taxation, and it prompted this challenge. I maintain that taxation is theft and contrary to the universally accepted moral principles, thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not murder. While these two principles are found in the Ten Commandments, they are also embraced by people of non-Judeo-Christian belief. They form the basis of every civilization, because without them there can be no peaceful social cooperation or voluntary exchanges between human beings. Most of the people I've spoken to over the years think that government taxation is not theft because government is a necessary social institution. The attainment of the common good requires taxes to support government. Thus, those who evade paying their proper share or those who object to how their tax money is spent, the pacifist on war, the Catholic on abortion, the anarchist in general, must be threatened with force beforehand. If they refuse to pay, they will ultimately have their property confiscated and sold at auction, or they will find themselves imprisoned, either after a conviction for violating the tax laws or for contempt of court, for refusing to obey a judge's orders to cooperate. If they violently refuse to cooperate with the marshals that come to take their property or arrest them, they will be subdued or killed. These actions by government agents are stealing and or killing by any commonly accepted definition of those terms. Aren't government employees doing the same thing as members of the criminal gang, taking property or life without the owner's consent? As Murray Rothbard once asked in For a New Liberty, is there a way to define taxation so as to morally differentiate it from robbery? Furthermore, consider the fact that there is a moral way to collect taxes without force or violence. Try rational argument and persuasion. Voluntarism is perhaps the most important libertarian philosophy, and this podcast is designed to give you a piece of that. But there is a ton of other information out there on the topic of voluntarism. This is why we've compiled an easy list of great voluntarist resources in one location as a one-stop shop for the very best voluntarist content out there. From authors such as Lysander Spooner, Henry David Thoreau, Etienne de la Boétie, Larkin Rose, Carl Watner, Herbert Spencer, and more at essentiallibertarianism.com/books. The best part is that every time you buy something from that list, you help support this show without having to pay a penny extra. So go to essentiallibertarianism.com/books today to start or accelerate your journey to the only non-political, non-violent strategy to achieve a free society and help us delegitimize the state. essentiallibertarianism.com/books. If government is really as necessary as most people think, then it ought to be quite simple to convince others to support it, or at least support as much of it as they believe is necessary. Instead of threatening people, educate them, convince them, demonstrate why they ought to contribute to government. Threatening them with force is not a way to answer their arguments against paying. If those who refuse to pay taxes at all, or who selectively refuse to pay part of their taxes for whatever reason, cannot be convinced, then they ought to be left alone. They ought not to be placed in jail or stolen from. Deny them whatever government services they are not willing to pay for. And if the supporters of government are still unable to collect enough in taxes to support the amount of government that they deem necessary, then they ought to dig deeper into their own pockets. The fact that government is a good cause is no justification for stealing from or killing those who refuse to support it. My challenge to people of goodwill is to recognize the logic and morality of my argument. The first step in universalizing the commandments against stealing and killing is to admit that taxation is theft, even if one cannot understand how government and society would function in the absence of coercive tax collection.
Thank you for listening to Essential Libertarianism. You can check out the archives of all of our episodes at essentiallibertarianism.com. And you can subscribe to future episodes on any podcatcher, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.